again.
Hello,
Alligator.
and welcome to the conversation where we get together once a week and we talk about our faith, matters of religion, our life. We have these conversations all the time, and sometimes we invite you to come along. I am Todd Brown, and this is Rick Coop, and today we have with us Sam Kaufman and Mackenzie Durbin, and you'll find out why here in just a little bit. We've been talking for a while about this idea of when your religion, when your faith becomes yours. So like when you're the one who's in charge of it, and you can do whatever you want. And I think for most people, that happens when they get to go away and go live. But when you start adulting, when someone says, if you don't make it to class, it's your fault.
Right.
If you don't get up in the morning and get to work, it's your problem, one way or the other. When you go away to college, for a lot of folks, would be that time. And you guys you just did it. Well, not really. It's been a while, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. So Mackenzie is a freshman at...
I was a freshman.
Okay, you already sophomore?
We're done.
Oh, you're out. That's right.
Yeah.
So don't short her.
Yeah,
she just stopped being a freshman, and she's a sophomore.
Sophomore.
And you're a sophomore at
IU.
At IU.
Mm-hmm.
In
Bloomington.
Yeah, Indiana University. Indiana University. Yeah. So, isn't
Some
that weird?
People would say Iowa University.
IU in Illinois isn't that in Bloomington as well?
Yeah, Indiana
so
University.
This is weird.
Yeah.
And then you are a junior at Notre Dame. Okay. So the thought was, you guys. Well, it's interesting. You're both PKs, right?
Yep.
So that means almost for some people, they rebel more when they go away to college if they're PK, right? They're like, I'm free!
Yep.
But, so the idea was, what happens when you leave and you like get there and then mom and dad leave and then like you're in this dorm and here I am and I get to decide what I'm doing. When you got there, was there any? This is such a weird thing because, like, we know your parents, so I hope that you feel like you can be frank about it. But was there any moment of confusion or moment of decision for you guys as far as where you went with your faith once you got there?
I can start. I think that my faith when I got there was strong enough that I didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Like, I knew where I stood.
Yeah.
And I had, for the first couple of weeks, I was there by myself, like in my room. So I still was doing, because I went like 2 weeks early.
Okay.
To like get a hang of things before school started, and so I had time to like set myself up the way that I wanted to set up for college instead of doing what other people wanted me to do. I didn't even have a roommate at that point, so when we directly started, I think there wasn't much change in the way that I saw things.
Okay.
Granted, I've only been through a year of college, but
well,
so
yeah, but that initial being on your own, as we talked a little bit ago, out of the nest per se, away from your home church, and then out of the shadow of your parents, and then now you're on your own and you're making your own decisions about life in general and your faith and where you're at.
I think that with going to Notre Dame, when we have welcome weekend and all the freshmen move in at the same time, on day 2 we have like the opening mass, and then we all leave our parents and that's it. So just there was from the start this kind of Christian connection. Even.
Yeah.
And I knew that going in too.
Wait, Catholics are Christians?
Well, I mean. You can decide that for yourself.
I'm absolutely teasing.
And so, there was a faith connection right from the start. I mean, and I'm at a Catholic school, and so that was a part of it. But still, it was the personal. I mean, that doesn't you can absolutely go to Notre Dame and have no religious affiliation whatsoever. I mean, absolutely, And so there was a moment when, I still have to decide to get up and find a ride to church, or, and there's campus ministry groups and faith groups on campus, and so you still have to decide to go to those and go to church, and so those are all still decisions that I'm still making. I mean, I still, do I really want to get up? And sometimes I've said, no, I'm too tired. I've been out late, or I've done this semester. I ran a half marathon. I was like, I'm not getting up for church the next day. There's just different things that absolutely I've chosen not to. But there were also moments where I had to choose to, or at least figure out how I could have a faith, or join a faith any other part than myself. I mean, I can always sit in my dorm room and read my Bible, and I've watched home church, and that's church as well. But to make the choice to go, that choice still remains. Absolutely.
That's absolutely. And nobody knows. Nobody knows any different.
Yeah. No one's paying attention.
And there does come a point where you can go, no, that's what I decided.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you're a full-on emancipated grown-up.
That is so true.
Despite what our parents think from time to time.
I know. I mean, the one thing I tell the seniors coming in, I'm like, no one makes you go to class. I mean, it's great.
Right.
Honestly, it's fantastic. It really is.
You found the same thing at IU were there groups there that you could be a part of if you wanted to be?
Finding groups on campus is rough. Especially for a secular school. They have a bunch of them, but the energies within them are very toxic a lot of the time.
Oh yeah.
And so trying them out and meeting new people and finding different energies, it's a process, and I'm still not done with it yet. I haven't, even now, even after a year being there, I haven't found a church that I go to consistently that is this is what I need, or this is the community I want to be a part of. And so a lot of the times it will be Sunday morning, I wake up and I watch church at home, because there's no set place for me yet, and I haven't felt that call to a place yet. And so when I do, I'll be there, but until then I'm still waiting to see what is supposed to happen for me.
Just before we met with you guys on another podcast that we did, we were talking about just that.
You have other guests.
Yes.
Wow, I thought it was just us.
Yeah. So far, of our guests, 20% of them have been out of your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we talked about that sometimes you have to do a little searching to find a place that you can call home.
Yeah.
And it's good to have, you guys both stated that you reconnect here with the church here through online, just to, do you find that it gives you that home connection again, and it's a good thing, or?
Well, yeah, and I think that, I'm in the boat where I've gone to this church since I was born, and so it is that little taste of home. It definitely is. And my family is still here, and so it is that taste of home. And that, every Sunday, that's, so it's familiar in a lot of ways, even though I'm not here, just watching it, it's funny, I know what's coming next.
Yes.
I know that Pastor Todd's about to come up and preach, and I know that we're about to sing that song again, so, which is funny. But it is that little taste of home, that I don't necessarily get at the church in South Bend, but it's still wonderful to have sometimes.
So you guys are kind of spreading your wings and finding your own place to go that's going to meet your own needs, but yet it's still good to have that connection back here a little bit with familiar faces and familiar songs and familiar scenery.
Yeah, I 100% have my moments where I'm it's a Saturday night, I'm dang, I don't get to go to my church tomorrow. Because, especially not having one yet in Bloomington, it's kind of I have one I go to, but it's not it doesn't feel like home yet. And so there's moments where I'm sitting there with my friends, and my friends, a lot of them are not, they're not Christians, because there's people, I literally live on a floor with people from all around the world. So they're very different religious backgrounds on my floor.
Not only not Christians, but maybe completely another religion, completely different.
And there are people that are this is going to sound a little interesting, but there are people that are openly the opposite, openly I believe more in the Satanistic portion. And it's a very interesting conversation that we have. We always will have a dialogue about that. But there are people there that genuinely have the opposite belief of me. And so, like, I'll be like, oh, I miss church. And then there's all these people that have been hurt by the church. They're like, I don't understand why you do that. They're like, I don't get that. Like, your place, I don't understand. Like, I'm glad you have it, but I don't get it. And it's like, I really wish I could just show you what my home felt like.
Wish I could take you to.
Yes. And then I've had actually a couple of people come with me because I talk about it so much. I've had friends here that have been like, okay, you talk about it a lot. I want to know what you're talking about. Like people that have never been to church before, who've been to church once and then they were ridiculed while they were there. So it's like some of my best friends have come with me and they've been like, I understand now, like why you have this connection to the church, why you have this connection to your home, because it's a different feeling than what they've ever experienced at church. Because they feel like they've been welcomed here, compared to at other churches where genuinely one of my friends was brought in and then completely told that they're not dressed the right way, they're not doing the right things, and I was just like, okay, well that's just not how church is supposed to be. So let me bring you, let me show you how church is, and then we'll find one in Bloomington together. Or if you don't want to come with me, I'm still looking. So it's either like an either or situation.
Do you find anything like that, Sam?
Yeah, there's definitely some. I mean, there's the Christian and not difference. I mean, for sure, absolutely. There's a few. You know, there's some Jewish students on campus, some Muslim students on campus. There's some just agnostic or atheists on campus. I'm friends with some of them. But then there's the big part of this. If we're going to talk about my story at Notre Dame, is the Catholic versus Protestant difference, which people look at in different ways. There's combativeness. I'm not very much a combative person in general, except to Rick, and so
I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. So there's that, but also like if you're open to having the conversation. So for example, in my dorm. Every dorm at Notre Dame has a chapel, and every dorm at Notre Dame has priests and residences, and just a culture of going to Mass. And so, which I go to Mass, and I love it. I've learned to love it a little bit. Although I can't take communion, right? So there's that one difference. But in my dorm specifically, there's every Thursday night, there's a tradition called Milkshake Mass, which is just like the normal Mass and then a time of fellowship, which is always milkshakes afterwards. But my campus ministry group I go to, that is the one like interdenominational group, which is Catholics and Protestants together, which is the one I go to, is on Thursday night. So I usually don't attend the dorm tradition. So like my thing was like, okay, how do I still be involved in conversations of faith without going to this huge tradition that's a part of the faith culture at my dorm? And the easiest way for me to do it was and we have a little courtyard and it's nice out there, and so like read my Bible out there when it's warm. Of course, when it's the South Bend winter, goodness gracious, that was something I was not prepared for. But when it's warm,
lake effect is a thing.
Lake effect is a thing I did not understand until I was in the lake effect zone. And so, yeah, because I'll call home, like, to 3 hours south, and she's like, my mom's like, oh, we got 2 inches of snow. I'm like, oh, well, we got a foot, so... and I'm walking to class still. It's great. But, just being open with, reading your Bible or praying or recognizing, or, like, going in the chapel to pray and being seen doing that, it's opened me up to a lot more conversations. And I could either, especially with Catholics, because that's who's most of my friends are.
Sure.
And... it's just the way about how we interact and have those conversations, and that we are united by, the easy thing, I guess, compared to your story, is that the easy thing about we're united by Jesus, we're united by, much of the gospel. And so the stuff we disagree about, we can chat about as well, but it's small potatoes compared to what it really is, and so, so being open to those conversations and being willing to be publicly seen practicing faith opens myself to conversations, and then as long as I have the right attitude to have those conversations, great conversations are had, and great friendships are formed, and great fellowship is had with other Christians. And so there is the difference, absolutely. And sometimes those differences have come into play, and we've had intense discussions about things, which is great, absolutely.
Yeah, good.
I think of that Proverbs 27 verse, iron sharpens iron. Yep. It works, and so there is a difference absolutely with between Christians, but I don't know, there is more room to have discussion, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe not more room, but it's an easier thing to get over, and then you can have the discussion, you know?
Hearing you guys talk, it sounds like both of you have had your faith strengthened in different ways. You, because of your discussions with Catholics and the differences in the faith, and you, as far as talking to people who either have been wounded by or who do not go to church, or, like you said, completely are the opposite of it. Do you find that your faith has been strengthened then during your time in college?
I think it depends. I think it depends on when you're talking to me in the last year and a half, because as it always has fluctuated. I think overall, having these conversations. I also am studying a culture that is very built on the Muslim faith. So looking at that and then like weighing it out like in class, where I'm like, this is what I believe, but this is kind of cool. It's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
And my mom even at Olivet's told me she studied Islamic studies, and she was like, it's a very interesting like hold to what you know. And so a lot of the time when I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is cool, but like this is what it is. That's that power. Like I visited my first mosque in Dearborn, Michigan on it was a couple weekends ago, and it's the Arab capital of the world.
Yeah.
Not the world, the
States,
U.S.
Yeah.
That was like a crazy statement to say the world. But so we visited the largest mosque in the United States, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is really cool, and everything that they're saying is very coordinated with what I believe, except for some little pieces. It's a lot like I know Christian or Protestant and Catholic isn't as easy to navigate, or isn't I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know that Muslim and
the connection isn't as direct.
It isn't as direct, but it is very much there. And one of my friends is from Tunisia. He looked at me after we visited the mosque. He was like, so are you converting now? And I was like, no. I'm good where I'm at. Thank you, though. He's a sweetheart, though, because we were discussing, we had a conversation right before Easter about Lent, and he told me, and I quote, your fasting is pathetic. He was like, I do not eat for 90% of this like time period. You guys are sad. It was like, you're so funny, but and it was a genuine conversation. We were both laughing the entire time, and I really feel like creating that space in my school is very important, because there's a lot of Christian people on my campus that would just look at him and be like, you're wrong.
Yeah, right.
And I refuse to be that, because that's not how you grew up.
And that is something that I have, Protestant friends and Catholic friends, and I'm adamant that, like, with Lent, for example, obviously, in the dining halls at Notre Dame, no meat is served on Fridays. Not even served, not even an option. Okay. So you either go to Chick-fil-A, or you just eat the fish, which I think, like, the fish is great. Like, it's fun, whatever. Surprisingly, they really try to make for Lenten Fridays are good at the dining hall.
If that's what you get,
I can't really
they've been doing it for years. They know.
Well, I can't really speak for all the other things they've been doing for years, but the Lenten Fridays are good because all the food is not great. But there are some Protestants that like intentionally go to Chick-fil-A on Fridays, and I just refuse. I just refuse because number one, these are my friends. Like, why would I not join them? I don't want to go to Chick-fil-A by myself, or even, like, with other Protestants, than, like, on a Friday night, instead of going to, like, just the dining hall, you know? Because, number one, I have no ability to conserve my meal dollars, and so I have to go to the dining hall as much as possible. But, number two, there's that scripture of, like, it's if your friend is fasting... In Romans, I forget what it is, but if your friend is fasting, it's better for you to not eat it, even if you don't believe you should. Like, and that's
better that you not make your brother fall.
Thank you. Yes.
By their definition of falling, not your definition.
Yes,
of falling.
exactly.
Thank you. And that, when I read that right there, it was kind of funny. I was like, Mom, there is a scripture to back me up.
I know that.
There are so many phone calls, Mom. Like, Mom, I need you to pull that scripture that you have. I know you have it. But when I got that one, I was like, that is what does it for me, because I would rather be supportive of their definition than go off and have some kind of, it's such the Protestant thing, to them it's such the Protestant thing to do, to go off and protest, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's I'm Martin
Protesting,
Luther, I'm Martin Luther on my Chick-fil-A order, you know, like that's what it looks like, because, I mean, that's what it looks like to them, right? And how does that put the conversation forward? How does that do anything for me? Nothing, you know? And so, there are some combativeness, and I'm just like, I just don't get it, because even if, and I pray that, you know, we would be able to agree. I pray that my Catholic friends would one day be able to agree. I don't necessarily pray that they become Protestant. I'm not necessarily decided on that question yet. But I pray that we can always be friends and always be Christians and always be together, no matter what differences we have. And in my mind, the combativeness and the, you know, not supporting of the way they're practicing their Christian faith does not move that conversation forward for me, and I just hate to do it. Now, there was a time when and there are certain times when I'm like, when at like Protestant church, he's saying something about Catholics, and I'm like, yes, sir, right? Like, he is speaking facts right now. But that doesn't mean that I have to go around and like turn to my Catholic friends and come back to the dorms and be like, so, I learned this today. I want you to know that you're going to hell. You know, like, no one's saying that. I don't want to say that, you know? And so, it just doesn't, doesn't move the conversation forward, or does it send it back. And that's kind of the benchmark for me.
Very cool.
What is it? When Paul says, I'm free to do anything. But it doesn't mean I should.
Yeah.
All the time. So, I was thinking of the differences between going to IU and going to Notre Dame. And I was also thinking about, you kind of were prepared for that because you went to Central.
Yeah.
So you're in more of a melting pot there than Wapahani. So a small town, small school. That's where I went. I went to Westdale. So but I also went to 16 different schools. So But I saw all the different flavors. But once I got to middle school, Westdale, and I know that world. That's kind of a bubble in its own. Yeah. But Central, you had some of that. You were prepared. You had been in this fight before.
Yeah, I've never had like a specific bubble or a specific like belief system. A lot of the people, what you see in Central is a lot of the sports teams and a lot of the things that I was involved in do have a very like Christian-centered. Yeah. Like even on accident, like one of the coaches for my basketball team was literally the head pastor of his church. So like it kind of just happened accidentally. But like there were a lot of like very Christian like centralizations. Not in like the school, but like in different activities that I did. Whereas you turn around at IU, you have to seek those out like an insane amount. Like you're never gonna find that specific thing that you want until you go find it. And a lot of the time, the ones that are coming to find you are the ones that are not the best environment. The ones that are looking for you, the Christian organizations on campus that are specifically looking for you seem to be like the ones that have all of the turmoil inside of them, and the like different people are not invited, not involved. And as myself and someone who really believes in that involvement,
so you can be part of our group, but you have to believe
X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And that's what I've seen. That's also what I've heard about. So I try and steer my way away from that because I'm not going to be told what to believe. My faith is my own, and I've had it for as long as I have. So. It's something.
You could spend all day there.
Yeah.
Because I just keep thinking, it's interesting that I always go back. How did we take this book with this man, God, who came to be with us and behave the way he did and make a religion that does that?
Yeah.
What?
Exactly. I agree with you. That's
Where's the breaking point?
That's why I specifically I'm like, I don't know about this, but thank you for thinking of me. And then I'm like, okay, cool. It was nice to talk to you guys. Yeah. And like, I'm not gonna sit there and judge them for the way that they do things because it's their religion. It's like their belief system. Yeah. But I'm also not going to allow them to have that much sway over my relationship with God.
How do you take Jesus and get intolerance.
Yeah, I'm not.
See, I've studied Jesus, and what I get from it is intolerance and rigidness. This is the guy that I think is my...
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How did we get there?
Yeah, and with the things that I've experienced with being a Christian in two, like, very non-Christian, like, supposedly non-Christian places, is that the people that you least expect are the ones that believe the hardest.
When I worked at the casino, what was very interesting to me, I worked there for almost 6 years in security. And what I found interesting were the people who were Christians who were there, who were very strong in their faith and also wanting to support each other, the other employees who were Christians too. And we actually had times where we met together and prayed for each other and talked about where we were and in the environment that we were in. So I hear what you're saying, and it's kind of interesting when you're in a place where you don't think you're going to find it, and then all of a sudden these people, these Christians, come out of the woodwork, and they're there, and their faith's very strong because they know that they're in an environment where they need to be with people who believe. Kind of neat.
It's also, on the other hand, too, you find the opposite. So you find people that, oh yeah, you say, you present this way, and they turn around and you're like, ooh, that doesn't seem accurate to what I know, but you go for that. Like,
Yeah.
But
So they get in front of a group of people and they present as Christians,
and then they turn around and change their mentality.
and then
Yeah. So, like, it really just depends on, I've, like, created my community, and I've created my community out of people who have the same, like, morals and values as me, whether that mean they're Christian or not. Because I believe that people need to be treated a certain way, and there's this, like, a set there that comes from my own beliefs. And there's a community that I can create around that, and then we can have those discussions about faith. I just have to know that at the beginning of the day, everybody that I bring around them is going to be respected first, no matter what their belief system is. And
What's
so that's
that
what I did.
saying that you say you can't?
they don't know.
No. Yeah.
They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
Which is trite and silly, but true.
No, I agree.
But I think you just expressed that.
Yeah.
That very thing. That, they have to know that you care about them.
The amount of conversations that I've had about the Bible, about all these things, like, my friends at the beginning of the year wouldn't have, like, I present myself as a Christian, and I know I am, and I don't present myself as a PK very often, because a lot of times the people have this entirely different, like, mentality of, this is how you're supposed to be if you were a PK.
Yeah.
And so that's hilarious to me, because I walk in there and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I practice the way I practice, and this is how I do this, and my Bible sits on my bed, or not on my bedside, but, like, there was a desk with, like, and I was like, it sits up there next to a couple of my school books, and the school books happened to be on punk rock, so there were, like, titles like, Please Kill Me next to the Holy Bible, and I was like, what is going on? But, like,
To grow.
I was like, I can't tell you on that one, but at the end of the day, like, they'd be like, oh, Kenzie will know this question that I have about the Bible, Kenzie will know this. And there'll be this conversation that is immediately had following
Yes.
that. And I love that.
Yeah.
Because my friends feel comfortable enough to come to me when they are struggling with the idea of faith, whether they are struggling with different, just like wanting to know more. And they come to me and they're like, hey, Kenzie, what's this verse and what does it mean? Because I keep seeing it all over my Instagram. And it's like, okay, yeah, let's find it and we'll see where it is contextually, because it's never in context.
Yeah.
And then you keep going from there. So, like,
Yeah.
you care enough about them that you create a space where they feel like they can come, and then they ask you about these things, and, like, that is my biggest thing when it comes to my faith. I like sharing,
Yeah.
but I don't like sharing in a way that's going to shove it down someone's throat, especially when they've had that done to them already. Like, a lot
Jesus.
of my friends have.
Nice.
And that's to me, that is the Jesus approach, right? They called him a glutton and a drunkard because he was a glutton and a drunkard. No, because that's the people he hung out with. He hung out with prostitutes and tax collectors and ornery businessmen and the people who were gross and sick and all these different things. It wasn't because he was those things. It was because when they had a problem, hey, I know that guy, and they can.
Yeah, I love my friends and I care about them a lot. And if they come to me with questions, they come to me with questions. If they don't, I'm still here. And that's what matters to me.
And it will come. It will come.
For someone, you guys, you've got your first year in.
Yes, sir.
You've got your second year in. For someone who is just graduating high school this May and getting ready to go and live their life as young Christians, what advice, what would you say watch out for? What advice might you have for them to as far as their faith is concerned and living their life? What would you, I know it's kind of I hit this out of the blue, but...
No, well, my brother's doing that here in a couple of months. He's going to be out of there, and he's thinking about coming to my school or going to Ball State, depending on the financial package. He really wants to go into things that have good programs everywhere, so he's just picking on money. But the only thing I've told him thus far is to make your community your own. Like, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna meet all kinds of people, and you're gonna have some people that are really not very nice. You're gonna meet some people that are really cool, and like, you go out there and you make your own community in an area where there is no like set like religion around you. Then you strengthen yourself in talking to them. And then, of course, you've got your, like, go find a church. My dad, on my first day of school, he was like, okay, you need to open this little journal, and it had, like, 20 things that you need to do while you're in college. Number 3 was find your church. Yeah. It was like, keep your faith, something, find your church.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking, but know that, honestly, my biggest thing would be know that it takes time, and follow what God wants for you. Because if you don't feel like that church that you go to the first time is the right place for you, because God's not telling you that you don't feel called to be there, it's not where you belong, and that's okay.
It's okay to move on. It's okay to move on, as long as while you're doing it is because you don't feel like you can. You guys were already purposeful in this church before you went. You already were contributing to the faith and to moving things forward and being a part of a community. So you knew what you were looking for. You're looking to feel like you're part of community. Mm-hmm. So I feel like if somebody walks in and they feel like there isn't an opportunity for community there.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just move on.
I agree.
Maybe they've been there so long that they're fixing to die because they're not reproducing and they don't have community and there aren't pieces and parts to connect to. Move on. I get that. If you don't, but don't just go because they looked at you funny.
Yeah, well, and on that note, when I realized a couple weeks into college that I was really enjoying just going to church and not having to be there, not having to do anything.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because I hadn't done that.
Sure.
For context,
I'm just worshiping.
I had led worship pretty much every Sunday for 4 to 5 years, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually wonderful, not that it wasn't wonderful to lead worship and wonderful to be instrumental.
No, you're
it was great.
Choir here, brother. I understand.
Right, but it was lovely to have a time of my life where I was changing in so much other, at college and college workload and all these other things were increasing. I don't want to have church increase in the way that I'm not worried about, okay, what's next? What's next in the order of service? What do I need to do? Who do I need to nod at? Or, what's next?
Yeah.
To just be sitting there and take my Bible and reading my notes and doing those things, that was great. And so what I found is that my community, and I would say it's still this way to this day, my community really isn't at the church, it's at the campus ministry on campus, and then we all go to the same church, and I've met some people from the church, but I don't know, I think just in the way that Notre Dame is and colleges, and Notre Dame is so a bubble in the way that the only time I usually drive my car is on Sundays to go to church. Yeah. We don't really leave campus. Mm-hmm. It's so small, and so I'm just not in the community and going to church and going to the weekly things. Often I do go every once in a while, but not the weekly things. And so that community is on campus, even if we're all going to the same church. And some people aren't happy with that. Like, some people in my friend group want more, and I'm always like, then go get more, you know, like, go, whatever you need, like, go do it. You have a car too, like, go, you know. But for me, like, where I'm at exactly at this point right now, that's just kind of how the way it is. And it'll be interesting because, like, I'm about to move to DC for the summer, and so I don't really know what my church faith community is going to look like. I know, like, the people I'm living with, and they're all great. They're all Catholic, but they're all great. And so, like, is it me going to mass on Sundays with them? Honestly, it might be, you know, like, it has, like, I've done that and gotten to hear the homily and worship and do those things too. You know, I don't know what it looks like, but that community is found. The community I'm looking for has been in the people I'm going to church with, not necessarily the church itself. And I would love for that to kind of adjust in these next 2 years. But we'll kind of see. I mean, I'm here for 6 months, and then I'm going abroad for 6 months, and then I'm my senior year, and then I'm gone. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But that's kind of the way it's gone for me. Yeah. But just on that note that you were talking about.
I hate to keep referring to it, but we just went through a why church. And so what we were talking about was, what is church? What's church? And when you look at the Acts 2, like, first church definition concept, was that they spent time studying and listening to the teachings of the apostles. They took care of each other. If they had everything in common, which didn't mean they agreed on everything. Yeah. It just meant that if I keep using this example, if Rick has a truck and I need a truck, I have a truck. Yeah. That's what they meant by had everything in common. If we took care of each other, if crazy, somebody in your family had to go to the hospital for something.
Crazy.
Then people,
that doesn't happen in my
never
house.
happens. Then people might help and bring meals. People might help and pick things up. People might help and do. But that's having everything in common. It's not that we agree. Yeah. We can be liberals and conservatives and whatever. It doesn't matter.
Protestants and Catholics.
So when I think of your church, is your community. It is your group of guys or gals that you hang out with, that you help each other. I know you would help, and they would help you, and you would be a part of each other's lives in that way.
And it's funny that you mentioned this, because last fall that the church we all go to went through Acts 2. Like, that was what we just kind of go through. Whenever they have sermon series, we just go through, like, books of the Bible.
Love it.
And we went through Acts 2, and it was really opening my eyes up to, like, I don't think ever again in my life am I ever going to be in as easy as a environment to look like the early church, because we all live in, like, however many acres Notre Dame is. We all basically go to all meals at one of two dining halls. So we're eating together, we're living together, we're meeting together, we have classes together. And it's the same thing, like, I might not have that answer, but I know my friend does, and so not cheating, but, like, can you help me with, like, going to do homework together?
I don't grasp this.
Right, I need help, right, like, or, you know, hey, I need help with this way, or, hey, like, do you want to do something on a Friday night and enjoy, like, put away the work for a minute and enjoy ourselves? And so when we were going through that study, I was like, this is, like, probably the most easy environment that I'll be in for my entire life to really make that happen, because we're all on the, like, 3 or 4 acres that Notre Dame is, and we're eating together, we're meeting together, we're living together, we're working out together, we're doing homework together, we're in class together. That's real community. That's that's church, and that's really cool. And we're also praying together and studying scripture together and going to church together and worshiping together and all these things. And so, that early, I really got a picture and a vision for what church looks like in a new way, because it had always looked pretty much the same for me for the last 10 years before I went to Notre Dame. And so when I got to Notre Dame and I started to build that early church and I started to build that community, I really got a cool picture and a cool vision that it was a blessing that God gave me to see, hey, this is something real, and it's really cool to be in this environment and to just soak it in and enjoy it, because I know that, this year, as we move into our junior year, this group that you don't know, but about 20 of us, 5 of us will be abroad in the fall, 7 of us will be abroad in the spring, and then we'll all come back together. But for this year, it won't be complete, and so when someone from church is gone, right, we're not whole, right, and so we kind of know that, and so that kind of community is just really lovely to just kind of soak yourself in and just enjoy, because I know that it won't last after graduation. We'll all kind of go our separate ways, theoretically, and so that vision of the early church is really fun. And then I have to build it again.
You have to be a grown up,
right,
and do it again in whatever community. And you don't in your area of study, you don't know where that might be.
Right, it could be in DC, it could be in Indy.
But very, very unlikely that it will be.
Yeah.
And when I think of you're building the community that you're in, and now, are there any other people in your community who are Christians?
Yeah.
Okay.
My best friend from here, when she came with me, I emailed her, or I texted her 2 days before the application for our housing when our floor was due, and I said, I need you to go ahead and fill this out. And so she filled it out. We live on the same floor, different rooms, because we would have killed each other if we lived together.
You gotta know your strengths and weaknesses.
We would have killed each other, because she's the way she is and I'm the way I am, and it's just the way it is. But she genuinely has one of the strongest faiths that I have ever experienced in my life. And I didn't know that until I got to college.
But
cool.
That's what really makes it cool. I also have, one of my friends is Catholic. So, there's that kind of energy, what you've experienced, where she's like, oh, I want to go to your church. I'm like, okay, I want to go to your mass. We'll try this out. We'll experience this. Because either way, it's the same God. So,
the Catholic Church is the universal church.
Yeah.
And I joked about Catholics aren't Christians. That's the most ridiculous comment to me.
Yeah.
Excuse me, honey. What denomination are you from? Because other than now I can't think of it. The Egyptian church. Coptic Christians. Other than the Coptic Christians, we all came from the Catholic Church.
Right.
So come on. They got sideways for a minute, we felt like.
Yeah.
But I think if you looked at all of us at this point, so they're Christians.
Yeah.
They're believers in Jesus Christ. We all can believe and agree on the major topics. I believe in God the Father. I believe in Christ His Son. I believe in the Holy Spirit.
Something I didn't know until I went to Notre Dame was that many Catholics feel oppressed. I did not even recognize that was something that was a thing. Yeah. I did not know that was a form of oppression until I went with these people and loved these people and walked through when they're hurt with them and walked through and so when we talk about it, I learned something new about inclusion when not only am I now a only religious minority in my environment of being Protestant, but I'm also working and studying and friends with a group of people that any other location than Notre Dame, they feel like they're the minority and they're the ones, they're in and out. So there's some things when I just am you know what, I'm gonna let them have that because they're I want nothing more. Sure. My best friend in the whole wide world is Catholic, and I always tell him I want nothing more than for you. And he came to Notre Dame to have the Catholic university experience. Yeah, I want nothing more than for him to have that. Yeah, and there is nothing. And I'm if there's ever anything, and it goes both ways. If there's ever how can I support you? How can I help you? How can we do this? But I was not aware that was even a thing, that there are Catholics that really felt oppressed until I came here, which taught me something new about inclusion. It taught me something new about how I work just live, exist around them, but also how I feel when there might be something that I'm the odd one out. that was new to me. That was new to me to be the odd one out.
Yeah.
But it was also new to me to think, you know what, they are, like, how can I put myself in their shoes? And even though I'm in their shoes right now, is that big of a deal? I don't usually think, it usually for me isn't, you know? And so that was something interesting to learn when I was in this new environment.
Take those moments.
Yeah.
And kind of take a picture of that.
Yeah.
You know, so, both of you are going away this summer. One of you is going away to a foreign land where they speak a different language and they act completely different than the rest of us. So, what about Washington, D.C.? You're going.
Same thing.
I was like, I think that's got to be him because I'm going back to Bloomington.
I was like, I thought she was going back to Bloomington.
No.
What's your question?
Going to Washington D.C. is got to be they behave differently in Washington D.C. There's so many things that we all have bigotry about people in Washington D.C. How does it feel like to be going into that environment? I think you kind of talked about it a little bit, finding church and
okay,
being involved in.
sure.
It's a different place in the world, young man. If you haven't been to Washington, D.C., the political atmosphere, the way that people behave, that people deal with other people.
Here's my thoughts on this. Number one, there are what? Plus 535 congresspeople plus 9 justices, so that's 544, and then plus 2 vice president, president. So there are 544 people in D.C. that are elected to be there.
Yep.
And that represent other people, right? And that there are thousands who work for the rest of the country, and then there are hundreds of thousands that live there, that grow there, that are there. Right?
Yeah.
So I totally get your point about, you know, it'll be a city. I'm from a farm. That'll be new for me. I lived in Indy last summer, and I thought that was the big city.
No.
Wait till I ride the metro every day to go to work. I'll farm boy in the city for sure. But you know, I think that as far as, I mean, I don't really feel like I'm walking into. And maybe I'm not ready, but
I'm not talking about it being violent or different or somebody hating you. We're not talking about. It's my time in Washington that I've spent working there. There's a completely different vibe when you're there. It is, I guess, it's more like a melting pot, like when you go to IU, but with a whole lot more confidence. The people in Washington D.C. have a lot more confidence about, and they're a lot of the folks where you're going to be working, as I understand. What are you doing when you get there?
I'm working public affairs at a political consulting firm.
Okay, so there are a lot of folks who are there because they have a particular bent, a particular political bent about the way things go, and they're not very often, they're very, very willing to argue with you about it.
Sure.
And if you're up for that, then that's great. But if you're not, it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
If you're not up for, and they are darn sure about their position, and they're very good at arguing about it. That's why they're there in a lot of those places. So I guess that's what I was driving at.
Why don't you ask me at the end of the summer when I come back?
Okay, it will be interesting to find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy conversation, and so you can get a lot of that when you're there. And I enjoy talking to people who are up for talking to people who don't agree with them. I love that. I love talking through different positions. But you can also get in positions with folks there where if you don't agree with them, you're a heretic and awful, and you need to. And I'm going to tell you what's wrong with you, Mackenzie. You're just wrong, and here's why. And how dare you even think that?
Yeah, no.
And so
She gets
you
that
kind
a
of.
lot.
Yeah, I'm always wrong,
Yeah, well.
but I'm always right too. So like, I'm just kidding.
When are you going to Jordan?
That'll be next summer most likely.
Next summer? I thought you were going this summer. That's
No.
why my stupid comment.
This summer, I'm headed back to Bloomington to intensive study the Arabic language. So it's going to be 2 months of living in the dorms and only speaking in Arabic and taking an entire year of Arabic in 2 months. So we'll see how that goes. But it should be fun. My tutor is teaching me, so like my tutor from last semester is the teacher now, so that'll be fun.
Okay.
She's really cool.
There's a guy on YouTube who picks up languages real quick.
I'm trying to be like that.
I mean, he picks them up just like real quick, and he does it online, and he learns the language, and then he likes to go to places where they speak that language, and then just while they're talking to each other about something, just start into the conversation with them. Silly stuff like Chinese restaurants in New York City, where the folks there are speaking their language, and then he will happen to mention it's like he wants the kung pao chicken with no peanuts, and then he wants the kung pao chicken. Hear him talking, and I'll go, with no peanuts in their language, and they're like,
Yeah, no, we did
and
that
off they go.
in New York when I went for spring break, because I have friends that are studying Chinese as well, like in the same way that I'm studying Arabic. It's through that flagship program. And we tried to get her to say thank you in Chinese to them, and she was like, I'm not ready yet. And we were like, it's okay. I promise, it's okay.
And saying Chinese there's a lot of different versions.
Yeah.
So he will learn some weird version that this group talks.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same way in Arabic. It's really
Yeah.
cool. The dialects.
So, what are some of the changes for you guys in your worldview that have happened since you? I think we've talked about some of these already. What are some changes of your worldview from lives in Muncie, goes to Central McKenzie to now you've been off at Bloomington or a small town Sam?
Wow, changes in worldview. That's broad.
That is very broad. Yeah. What are all the foods you like ever? Yeah. No. What are some of the things that maybe changed for you, perspective-wise, when you got there?
I think religiously, that campus ministry group that I'm in, that I recently became on the leadership team for, and have been in charge of. We were having a discussion the other day about just kind of the next kind of year and planning and everything, and I said, one of the things that, and I think that some of our team was trying to be, and I gotta push back against, because nothing is a substitute for a personal relationship with Jesus. And so,
Amen.
here, I pretty much knew when I was here what to do, when to go, how to act, how to look, how to do it all. I knew that. Not to say that I didn't have a faith that was my own on the side. I did. But there were many times when I was running on autopilot still. I mean, by all means, because I had a soccer game that I was leaving for, or I was coming from school and I had this or I had that, and so I just knew how to do it and was running on autopilot. And so when it's, having a faith of my own and I'm not necessarily involved in the day-to-day life of a church that looks like this, but a church that looks more like a community, that's kind of what I'm involved with now. It's still, nothing is a substitute for a personal relationship with Jesus. And so fitting that in, so one of the things that I love about summer break and winter break is that is the only time that classes really stop. Every other break, there's always something to do. And every moment of every day at college, when I step on campus, there's some paper I could work on, there's something that's coming, right? I never stop, right? Until the class finishes, I never stop. And no one does. I mean, we pause for moments, but it never stops until you're completely done, you take the final, right? And so within that, fitting a personal relationship in with everything else that you have to do with job and internship and schoolwork and going to the gym and going to eat, something that I was well, I could either sleep or I could eat, or I could do this homework. That was never a debate for me before I went to college. Do I really want to eat right now? But it's also well, I could get up and read my Bible, or I could eat before class. Or I could wake up earlier, which ooh, do I really want to do? Those are all decisions that I now have to make. And you can't really run on autopilot, because I do run on autopilot and then it's weeks and I realize that my Bible that sits on top of my desk, I'm oh, it's been sitting there for quite a while, because I've just run on autopilot. And so that worldview of I am doing, I'm doing fine in lots of areas in my life, but, and I'm doing great in my faith too, but you cannot, it's not something that can run on autopilot. Even in class, I can kind of run on autopilot because I could just crank out, now 2 years in, I can crank out 1,000 word essay in couple hours, an hour or two, and I could not even know what the topic
And it
is
could
before
not
I
even
sit
say
down,
anything.
and it cannot say anything, but it still gets an A. I can do that, but and any college student pretty much can do that after a while, but like. You can run an autopilot in the gym. You can run an autopilot. You can eat but really be thinking about the class you're going to. You can do all these things, but you can't be an autopilot with your personal relationship with Jesus. You can't, and you can just read the Bible and then forget about it and then move on, right? Like you can check off the boxes, but you cannot really form the relationship. And so with that sort of worldview, it's really about intentionality, and it becomes really about, how do you become intentional with this thing that I've always had and that's always been present in my life, seeking new ways of intentionality and seeking new ways of meaningfulness, meaning, has been something new and has been something that has changed that I didn't necessarily have to encounter before I came here. Because even when my life was pretty structured here, I knew when to go where, when to go to school, when to go to practice, when to come to worship practice, when to come to church, and I knew when to fit in my personal relationship. Like I knew when I could develop it, when I could read the Bible, when I could pray, when I could just spend moments at the piano alone worshiping. But here, not here, but now at Notre Dame, it becomes much more fluid, which is fun. Like I can grab a Bible moment between classes, or I can run into the music building and steal a practice room and have some moments on the piano with God. But I'm making decisions like, do I want to read my Bible right now, or do I want to read the reading for class? Of course, the decision eventually becomes both, but I have to make time for that, right?
Right.
So it is a more.
And there are only so many hours you can set the alarm clock back. You get to 5 and 4.
There are so many times I can ignore it all, hit snooze, and then be like, okay, I gotta go to class. I didn't do anything I was supposed to do, right?
Yep.
So the worldview that's changed is that it's become much more intentional, and it's had to because it's not structured anymore. My life is structured. I get my classes first. Like that is what structures my life. Is I get my class schedule, and then I get my extracurricular schedule.
Paint around it,
right? And then I fit in the job, and then I fit in the extracurriculars. And then I fit in the rest, and so, and maybe that's, saying that, it's kind of making me think, how can I maybe fit in the times of faith or the time of intentional faith-built grace habit, grace habits. That's kind of what we like to coin those here. The word grace habits. How can I fit those in first? And where can we fit those in? And my GCal has the stupidest stuff on it. It has. My Google Calendar has like wake up this time, reading the Bible this time, just because sometimes I have to. If I can't, giving me the space to just write it all down gives me the space to be intentional about my faith. Because I don't have to worry about everything else. I can just be present in this moment for right now and take it and walk with it into the next thing.
And if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't happen.
It doesn't exist. Exactly. If it's not written down and on my calendar, it does not exist. Absolutely.
It ain't on there. It ain't happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And so sometimes that is with my faith, even. If it's not on the calendar to do this, I'm going to forget. Because I'm always going to be, with the worldview that I'm in right now, I'm a student. The most pressing thing is the assignment that's due, right? The most pressing thing is the essay that's due tomorrow. And so unless I remember, you also haven't read your Bible, or you also need to, or you also, and that's the other thing is like how to enjoy faith a little bit more, and that way, like, you were really interested in this book. Oh, right. Let me go read that. Let me go study more. Let me, the great thing about going to Notre Dame is let me go to the, theology section of the library and go get a good commentary, that's just like what it is, and so, but I'd say the worldview, I've gone on a rant now, but the worldview is the intentionality, and that nothing is a substitute for personal relationship. I can schedule my community, I can schedule having dinners with good Christians, I can schedule, going to faith groups, and I can schedule all that, and I can schedule reading the Bible, but you can't run an autopilot when you're doing it, and so that's the thing that's changed for me.
Okay.
I think my biggest worldview changes is, number one, the world is so much bigger than you think it is.
Yes, ma'am. It's a small world. Baloney.
Oh, yeah, no. Like, it is, though, because a lot of the time, I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go try this club out, and all of a sudden there's 12 people I already know there, and I'm like, oh, this is great, we have the same interests.
Yeah.
But you turn around and you're like, wait a second, you're from the other side of the world. I have 2 friends currently on the other side of the world, one of them living there, one of them visiting. So, like, you're chilling there and you're like, oh, I have to call you at this time and this time because you'll be asleep from here to here. Like, it's a very cool experience to have. And so, like, genuinely the world being bigger is something that I'm gonna grapple with my entire life. But it's so intriguing, and I've got friends that'll text me from where they live, and they're like, oh, this is the beach from my friend's balcony at this. I'm like, I'm trying to be like you, like, I want to do that. So you turn around and all of a sudden you're like, wow, the world is so much bigger than I thought. On the other hand, I had something else I was going to say, but I don't seem... Oh, and then the other thing is go where you're welcomed. That has been my biggest thing. The church that I consistently go to, because I don't go on Sundays. I actually go to the Wednesday night, it's like almost youth group, but not quite. It's just like a college kid get together, because the closest church to me is like a 30-minute walk. So they'll come get me and they'll like hang out with me, and I go get coffee with the leader. And he's super cool, and everybody there is so nice, so I'll go to that on Wednesday nights when I can. But like he said, at some point there's certain assignments that are due on Wednesday nights, and I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be there this week, I'll be there next week, I'm just got to get this done. Like, there's certain things that like come in the way, but that is where I've been the most welcomed on campus. Like, by the school that I'm a part of, by the programs that are from the school that I'm a part of, and then by that church. And so that's where I go. And it's like, go where you're welcomed, go where your interests and your like spaces meet. So like, the more that I've experienced being on campus and not being wanted in certain spaces and being like embraced fully in others, that's where I'm going. Because they're gonna invest in me when I'm going to invest in them, because I'm gonna put my all in what I can do. So those are like my big things. Number one, the world is gigantic, and I think it's so cool. And number two, the world isn't that gigantic because people are hospitable.
Yeah, people are going to gather together. You're going to find your people where you're at. Yeah. So I think so much of the world that view is almost counter to what is happening in a lot of what's going on in the world right now. Is people want to bang the door down to get in where they're not welcome and tell them why they're wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, just chill.
Yeah. If you don't fit there, you don't fit there. It's okay. And if you want to fit there, make your own way into it. Don't.
Or you're gonna have to sit still for a minute.
Make a friend.
Don't go running in the door but crashing it down. Just go sit still for a minute and be quiet.
Exactly.
And they'll come to you at some point.
Literally make a friend. They'll get you your foot in the door, and you'll have fun.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yep. Okay. So, was there anything we didn't cover? Okay.
Hey, it's up to you guys.
Guys, we appreciate you hanging out with us for a little while. We're going to head out, but we appreciate you guys coming and staying with us. If there's anything that you think of that you'd like us to talk about, let us know. We'd sure appreciate it. I hate to be so schmaltzy as to say, click that like button if you would, or follow us. If you did like it and you'd like to hear more conversations like this. So you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you later.